Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Marvel Comics 1000, and I really like this issue. It did a nice job of celebrating Marvel's 80 years in the comics business, while also doing something cool of, even though it's kind of a retcon, doing things with this object of the Eternity Mask and teasing it out and kind of weaving it throughout Marvel's history in a way that works pretty well and doesn't feel like a really bad forced retcon. So, there's a lot of cool pages. I mean, we start off with like the Human Torch kind of bringing everything up. We get the first teases we've got of the Eternity Mask and these X-Men, but they're not the mutant X-Men. They're kind of have a different objective in mind. And we start kind of weaving through. We see Jimmy Woo being brought up, and he's important to what's going on with the Eternity Mask, because most of the things that we see throughout as we're learning more stuff about the Eternity Mask is Jimmy Woo tracking down and figuring out information. Then we switch over to like America Chavez, and seeing kind of her whole backstory in a page, and it's like, very nicely done. We get a nice Cap one as he's kind of there, kind of talking about what the mask means to him and everything. I'm like, alright, sweet. It's, even though every page is like a story, usually they hit a lot of good beats, and they really get the characters. We get a funny Hellcat one as she's talking about like selfies as she's fighting a villain. We get Frequency X kind of delving more into what's kind of going on, as we then switch over to Wu talking with Namora about the mask as well, going more along the trail of this like Thunder person. And we get, again, some more information as we see it kind of going through history from this Black Rider person, and seeing how this other guy just kind of like got it off them as they were dying, because they had to take the mask off to kind of try and help them stay alive, but didn't really help. We got a Tessie the Typist one, and that was interesting, seeing kind of back in the day as they're going to deal with these gangsters and everything going on. We get Marvel Boy and The Last Stand of the Dark Avenger. That was a pretty kind of cool, creepy one, as he's like popping up and sees the skeleton of the Dark Avenger. The Doctor Strange one was pretty cool, as he was trying to have to like clean his cape and having to fight with it, and then just essentially trying to trick it, throw it in the wash, and he has to sit in the laundromat naked. That was really funny. We get to Loki next, as we see all the different incarnations of him saying like, yeah, you can escape, and it's a really kind of cool exploration of, even though it's just a page, all the different kind of actions Loki's trying to get out of this kind of cycle, but he just keeps getting caught in it. And it really sucks, but it's really how his character is utilized, and we see him going through all these different incarnations trying to break this cycle, but not having the success yet. We also get a cool kind of like parody one that we've seen with like not the actual Hulk and not the Thing, as they're like fighting over ice cream. That was a pretty nice one. We switch back to kind of present day as we get Gorilla Man and Wu, and Wu gets Gorilla Man to use this apparatus to try and commune with the Avengers Mountain Celestial to see if they got any information on the Eternity Mask. Let's see here. We then move to a really cool one as we see the Black Knight detailing his history with the Eternity Mask, as he was sent off to try and like fight the guy that had the mask on, and like, and he's doing some weird kind of stuff, and he, even with his ebony blade and everything, he wasn't able to really defeat him. I mean, he was able to kind of get away, but it wasn't a clean defeat. It's like, okay, this mask is something. We then move and we see that Wu's kind of like talking more about the mask and how it is kind of in American culture and how it was kind of used, because this mask has been kind of equated with some kind of equality kind of thing, like an equalizer or whatnot, and how it's compared to kind of Chinese kind of history as well, and having the different kind of symbolism of black masks in America and China, and how this could have almost been the birth of like the first superhero, but why wasn't that? I kind of like him kind of trying to figure out what's going on with it. We continue the journey of the Eternity Mask as we see the Black Rider making this test for this new guy, and he kind of understands the mask a little bit better with the whole how it kind of equalizes effect, and he pretty much set it up for a thief to pretty much get there and try and steal money from him, but he's like, hey, you passed the test, and pretty much hands it off. We then see the next kind of iteration of those earlier X-Men as they kind of change and turn themselves into the Enclave and try and figure out what to do with the Eternity Mask. We get a pretty good Hulk funny interview where they're asking him all these questions and he just eats the microphone. We get a good Groot and Rocket interview as they're being interviewed in space, and Groot's giving all these answers that are like really feel good and everything, and Rocket's like, this is all bullcrap, man. You're not saying what we were supposed to be saying, as he just storms off. Ben Grimm's the next one to be interviewed, kind of hitting on why he is a superhero and kind of going through all these answers he could give, but it's like they haven't been able to take him down now. And even with everything that's been thrown at him, so he's just going to keep going and doing what he's doing. A funny one that we got was we go back to the part where Peter was bit and trying to figure out what's going on, and he called the university, and he was actually connected with Doc Ock. He's like, none of your symptoms make any sense, even with being bitten by a radioactive spider. It's like, I don't know, you're probably hallucinating or on LSD or whatnot. That was a kind of funny little thing to reach back in. We get an Iron Man one that deals with like the heart of his character, of like what happened when he was injured, and just pretty cool to kind of see him with like all different armor and why he does what he does to kind of help people. We get a cool one that like showcases Steve Rogers as a kid kind of playing in the snow and all that, while also alluding to him eventually getting frozen. We get a really funny Black Bolt one as he's like a kid and dreaming and thinking about like school and all that like mortifies and goes really kind of crazy with the art, and I really like that one. That one was pretty sweet. We get a cool T'Challa one, kind of like ruminating on the history of Black Panther and all that. Let's see. We then get into another story showing a new Eternity Mask user who was kind of betrayed by the Enclave. We get Captain Marvel doing a kind of cool thing about like talking about villains and like getting help from friends and all that. That was a nice kind of heartwarming one. The Galactus Farmer one was a pretty good one, as he's talking about kind of how a farm works and operates, and how he kind of operates on the same level, and how usually the animals, in this case he's using the metaphor of sheep, usually don't understand all that the farmer does for the livestock. I'm like, that's a really good way to kind of define what he does on a cosmic scale. Really cool one that we got was Conan as a king, and this one guy was brought forward who was stealing from him. But the thing is, when Conan was younger, he was partnered with him, and they were stealing stuff, and the dude was like, hey, you'll probably be a king one day, and I'll be stealing from you. And he's like, lets him go with what he had acquired, being like, hey, you kind of lifted my burdens a little bit, no problem, do your thing. And I was just like, that was a really cool one. The next one we see is Red Wolf, and I really like the style of how it was done. How it's kind of just like text in the middle of the page, and you see all this kind of nice, really kind of colorful artwork around that just really flows with the story pretty well. And I got to learn more about that character. There's a really cool thing of like looking through all this history and just seeing all these different characters and even learning about some new ones. The Blind one, I really like that Blade got a good shout out as he's just like going through killing vampires and then having a nice kind of relaxing day. Mary Jane was kind of up next as we see her side of how she was affected by Gwen's death, of how she wasn't really best friends with her, but she was kind of there when she died and was there for her, and that kind of, when Peter was there, being there mainly for Gwen. It's like, okay, that's kind of interesting. We get Wolverine's introduction, which was pretty funny, as him being like put on a stage for like the Hulk and Wendigo fight. Punisher getting into who he is and why he does what he does, which is really nice and effectively done. And the heirs to the Tigers with the White Tigers was nice to see their history because I wasn't that familiar with it. It really kind of helps because the latest Cap issue has the White Tiger in there. I wasn't expecting to see Star Wars in this, and I'm glad that they had it because of the storied history that Marvel and Star Wars have. And you just see it as these rebels are kind of celebrating the fact that they potentially killed Vader, but of course we know they didn't, and he just pops up and just like, screw it. The next story we get is Blind Justice, and we see that this Eternity Mask user is definitely going after the Enclave. It's like, ooh, okay, have to see how that goes. And Nighttime in the City was pretty cool because we learn about this mask kind of dude and his relationship with this immortal woman, and she cursed him with immortality, and they're back and forth, and how she had been gone for, we don't know the exact length of time, but like lots of years, and how suddenly he like took out a mugger and she sends her regards, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. I'll have to look into that. We get a She-Hulk one kind of talking about her history, and I'm like, alright, that's pretty sweet. I like that she got her kind of shout out. We get Iron Man and Doom, which did a pretty good one, where they showcased how Iron Man had people to go back to, and Doom didn't. The Hercules one was hilarious, as it's kind of like this broken down theater, and this robot's trying to introduce him, and Hercules is wasting all his time, and he tries to get to the end, and still blames Thor. That is so true to Hercules. He always blames Thor for a lot of stuff. The Storm one we got was pretty sweet, as we see that this little girl was saved by Storm, as her mother had like died in a storm as they were on a boat, and that was just really kind of cool. Storm, I like a lot as a character, and I think that this did her justice. Funny one next was that we got Spider-Man, and he saved this one woman, and she's pregnant. She's like, hey, give me your name. And he's like, Ben. And we just see all these people being named Ben afterwards. That was just really kind of cool. We get Thor getting his due as he gets Paige that really gets his character as well, just how he wants to help people and do the right thing. And I'm like, yes, very nice. Howard the Duck was pretty interesting, as I was like, okay, how are they going to do this for him? As he's like talking about what's going on in the world and then getting hit by fruit pies at the end. I enjoyed that one. Nice art too. We got a Spidey and Wolverine one where he's like, Spidey is there at the anniversary of someone's death, and Wolverine's just pretty much trying to talk him out of it, and just like, hey, work with it, man. Just get through it. Don't come back here. And I'm like, that's pretty good advice from Wolverine. It's like, even though they kind of have a contentious relationship, how their friend, this definitely spoke true to their friendship. As like, yeah, Wolverine can get annoyed with Spider-Man, but he does view him as a friend and will try and help him. We got a nice speedball one as he's like bouncing around and dealing with his powers. We get a damage control one where he's like showing around an intern, and then Vulture kind of comes in, steals some stuff, and it accidentally kills the intern, and he's like, ah, crap, we're going to need another intern. We got mystery lessons where we got kind of more information on the mask. Nice kind of Force of X deal for the X-Force and their history. Spidey and the Thing fighting Venom was pretty sweet as they're trying to one-up each other. We got a really funny one with Punisher and Wolverine talking about bats. I never expected to see this kind of thing, but it really worked. You would think that it wouldn't fit for the characters or anything at all, but it did. They did it in a nice way that didn't really like break any of the characters as they then went upon their rampaging spree. Another really deep Spider-Man one we got was how he explains the route he takes and how he's controlling New York City, and that was a really sad one as he kind of goes past all the places where he has failed, and kind of reminiscing on those facts, but also kind of drawing strength from them to try and not let them happen again. We get a cool Apocalypse one as he's kind of like laying out his information, talking about the Horsemen. We get another good Cap one. Then the next one we get is Deadpool. That's pretty funny and has a Batman cameo in it. I did not expect that. I'm like, okay, that's kind of sweet. Daredevil kind of explaining what he did, what he does and why he does it, and kind of how people give him his name is like pretty. That really, I'm not that much into Daredevil, but I liked how they did him justice with this one. Funny enough, we then get to Rick Jones as he's doing a fourth wall break, and I thought we'd just mainly get that with Deadpool, but this one was kind of sweet. It was just one page, one panel kind of deal, where he's just sitting there kind of talking, interviewing with someone. I was like, okay. And then we finally get kind of an X-Men one, as it's kind of just like explaining their history pretty succinctly. We get Jessica Jones kind of getting her own kind of thing going. And Elsa Bloodstone, as we get more information on her, I had been into kind of like the supernatural Marvel stuff, and it was nice to kind of see her get something, as there's this weird little shark puppy thing, and she's like, I'm going to protect you no matter what kind of thing. I'm like, aw, that's adorable. And she's going to like shotgun the shit out of anybody that tries to hurt her. We get another X-Men one with Historia of X. I'm like, okay, cool. We get a crazy X-23 one where Gabby's pretty much trying to wake her up, and hey, look outside as we see like a lot of heroes fighting Fin Fang Foom. I'm like, nice Fin Fang Foom. I was not expecting him in this. We get the Young Avengers kind of catching up. That was pretty sweet. Now, granted, I was never into them that much, but it was nice how they did the character dynamics as they eventually suit up to go help out, and Patriot gets back into the game. The next one is a funny Luke and Jessica interview that was just kind of balls-bustingly crazy. I'm like, not expecting that. That was pretty good. We get the Hulk family kind of getting together and just kind of showing that the Hulk really isn't alone. I'm like, that's really nice, and showing all the kind of lives he's touched. We get an Iron Man Faces one, which was kind of interesting, as it like this one was more to kind of commemorate the first Iron Man movie, as we see all of the different masks, and then finally his face go apart. It's like, oh, okay. We switch back into making more headway on the Eternity Mask with X plus 80, as they're kind of putting all this stuff together with the Camelot, the X-Men turning into the Enclave, and kind of figuring out what they have to do. And of course, Wu is with this, and he's like, oh, looks like we've become the new 3Xs. And it's like, okay, that'll be interesting. We get an MJ interview, which is pretty interesting as we get through all the different kind of aspects and all the, sometimes even commenting on covers and the whole kind of life spread that MJ has had. We get a nice, funny Miles story, as it's just one page again, but it's like just the artwork, and then we've got like some lines, as it's pretty much explaining how he locked himself out of his house and was trying to figure out how to get back in. We get a touching Peter and Aunt May one, as he had to deal with Doc Ock, but was able to get to Aunt May in time to visit Ben's grave. Let's see here. We get an explanation of Cable's scars. That was kind of an interesting one, kind of an oddball. I'm like, okay. We get Miracle Man popping up. We get another good Doom one, and another funny Deadpool one, as he's kind of trying to talk about what's going on and then having to do his best to explain at the end, kind of similar to Herc. We get the Watcher talking to various Marvel heroes about their own regrets and kind of his own regrets as well. It was an interesting kind of spin and look into these different heroes and the Watcher and what he regrets. We get the Silver Surfer having a nice page to kind of explain him and do justice to his character arc and what he's done so far. And then we get at the end and really get wrapped up into what's going on with the Eternity Mask, with Eternity explaining who he is, and that the Eternity Mask is made of his own substance and gives power equal to any they may face. So that makes this mask very important and a pretty important cosmic tool throughout all of existence. And it's pretty much on Earth, and that's how we've mainly been following its history. So we'll have to see why it's on Earth and what its objective could be, if it's got its own sentience, and if it's been influencing people. So I'm like, oh, this is a nice tease. I really like what was going on here. And then we get the last tease of the Masked Raider, the latest person to hold the Eternity Mask, and what their objective is they've done their own kind of history of what's been going on with it. And then we get a cool in memorandum page at the end, and that's it. I really like this, and think it did a really good job of exploring Marvel's history, doing a more hits than misses. Some of them are just like, okay, like the Cable Scarves one, but the thing is, I didn't get to a point where I really hated anything or really hated any of the artwork. Most of it really did justice to the characters that they were exploring or the stories that they were exploring, while also having the interweaving of the Eternity Mask throughout. I'm like, I'm really interested to see what they're going to be doing with that. There's a lot of possibilities that the Eternity Mask, being part of the entity Eternity and giving power equal to those that they face, could be done with throughout a whole different kind of stories, and how this is going to affect the Marvel Universe. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a nice day.